Hey everybody, and welcome back to Storytime with JRP. We're continuing my book, Laurence Grey, Secret of the Lost Roanoke Colony, and we're currently in chapter 42. So if you're just joining us, head back to chapter 1 so you don't miss any crucial details. So a brief recap of chapter 41, Laurence Grey came back to modern times where he punches General Sheldon when he finds out that Sheldon counted all that time he spent in the past as time towards Jason's eventual death. He thought that because he was back in time, that would have paused time, but it didn't. It counted towards that time. And then he punched Sheldon, which reduced his time even further. But luckily, Grey found a clue, which led him to the Huntington Library. But he only has about an hour and a half to find the solution before his son dies. So we're going to pick up now in chapter 42, titled Time is Running Out. After paying a fee, Laurence Grey and the rest of the group rushed into the Huntington Library, with only 90 minutes left for Jason's life. He didn't know where to look. He began randomly running from tree to tree, some with and without leaves, with and without rocks. Jose Gonzalez joined Grey in the latter's search. The former was being paid, after all. Sheldon and his group of masked assassins just watched. Although Sheldon wanted to find the colony, he had nothing to lose. Grey needed a motivation, and a consequence if he failed. The question is, how could Sheldon continue to motivate Grey if Grey's son died? He'd have nothing left. After 20 minutes of searching, Grey became hysterical. He would not, no, could not lose his son. First, his wife a year ago, then his friend Jack Larrabee a week ago, and in just 70 minutes, Jason. He ran to Sheldon and dropped to his knees. "Please, General, help me out," screamed Grey. "I can't lose my son." Sheldon smiled knowingly. "All right, Grey, I help you. You seem to have missed a part of the clue. You found the word Huntington in the clue, but failed to notice the word coast. I can see why you thought it was the library because of the mentioning in the clue of reading, but I believe that is referring to a library in Huntington as the city instead of the Huntington Library, which is here in San Marino. Certainly not on the coast." Grey's eyes widened. He wanted to say something, but he just couldn't get over the shock. This was a major setback he had made. Getting to the real Huntington Library from here would take 50 minutes, if not more. That would only leave Grey a mere 20 minutes of search time, and then it would be all over for Jason. If Grey was not already on his knees, he would have fallen on them. He nodded his head in defeat. There was just no beating Sheldon. The general, presently, was still staring at the crumpled form of Grey. He gestured to his assassin guards. "Come, my elites, give Grey some time. After all, it is his time, not ours." After Sheldon and his elite force walked away, cab driver Jose Gonzalez knelt down next to Grey. "Mr. Grey," Jose began, "I've only known you for a short time, but I can already understand your situation. But don't lose hope. It's your son, and you should do all you can for him until it is really too late. Don't give up now." Grey was still looking down, but a fire ignited inside of him. He stood up dramatically, and then realized he'd only have 15 minutes of search time once he got to Huntington once again, and became depressed again. Jose noticed Grey's gloominess and said, "Come now, I'm sure that Sheldon man is a bit flexible. Strike a deal with him." Because of his knowledge of Sheldon's actions, Grey immediately began shaking his head. But then, something Mr. Gonzalez said suddenly struck a chord in his brain. What was it? Sheldon. That's it! Laurence Grey cracked a smile and shook the taxi driver's hand. "Thanks, Jose. You just reminded me of a bargaining chip that just might work." Jose grinned. "No problem, Laurence. Come, let's find the thing and save your son." As expected, even with Jose's crazy driving, the trip to Huntington Beach took 50 minutes. Walking to the city's main library, Sheldon was surprised to see Laurence just strolling up to the library, considering he only had 15 minutes to save Jason. "What's the holdup, Grey?" Sheldon queried. Grey smiled conspiratorially. Speaking of that, General, can I speak to you in private?" Sheldon nodded. Sure." He grabbed a gun from one of his assassins. Grey raised an eyebrow. Sheldon noticed and said, "Hey, you never know what terrorists would do when you have the chance." Grey clenched his fists. "I told you, I'm not a..." But he was interrupted by Sheldon's stop sign hand gesture. "Save it, Grey. Talk to the hand." They stepped inside a study room in the library. "All right, what's up?" asked Sheldon. Grey smiled evilly. Yeah, he finally gets to smile like that. "I know who you really are, Philip Swanson. And if you don't do what I'll say, I'll prove it to everyone." Alright, that is it for chapter 42, guys. So it looks like Gray's about to threaten General Sheldon with the reveal of his real name. But would the assassins even care, or how will he benefit from leaking that to any certain number of people? Well, you have to find out in tomorrow's chapter, guys. Alright, I'll see you then.